Okay, guys, so now I'm going to walk you through very quickly how to do a simple gist, and it starts by doing two things. Number one, by identifying the topic of the paragraph or section, and you can usually do that by like the first sentence, or if there's a subheading, you can use the subheading. So I'm going to take my text box and I'm going to add it right here, and now I'm quickly just going to read through my paragraph. No matter what your level of interest in or exposure to the idea of life in the Middle Ages happens to be, some aspects of daily life and society have become ingrained in us as members of the modern world. From bars and pubs with peculiar and funny names like the Blue Pig Inn or the imaginary or imagery or the seal or the imagery in your city's seal to the white knight descriptor and dating terminology, many of us have at least some picture in our minds of what it must have been like to live in medieval Europe. Now, I'm going to see the same idea repeated in two places. In the first sentence, it says that like no matter how into medieval times you are, when I say that word, like you can picture something from it. And that idea is repeated again in the bottom sentence where it says, we all at least have some picture of what life in medieval times was like. So I'm going to say that the gist of this paragraph is probably like, we all know a little bit about life in medieval times. And I'm just going to abbreviate medieval times as MT because I know what I mean. All right, now the second paragraph is going to pretty much say the same thing, except it's going to say that the reason why we picture medieval society like that, like the stuff that we picture, comes from the fact that like people couldn't read. So our ideas about life in medieval times comes from people not being able to read. Okay, so now that we have those two gists, we just have to go through and check our last one. What it means to be literate is not an absolute standard. So there's not really any like basic standard of literacy. This was even more true in the medieval ages when a majority of the population couldn't read at all. And what was considered literate could range from being able to read in many different languages to simply being able to recognize some letters. Mainly, the teaching of reading and writing was reserved for royals, nobles, and some members of the clergy. And even in these classes, literacy was only required if you were male. And then, even then, not promised. So it sounds like what this paragraph is saying to me is that some people could read, right? Like nobles and royals. So some upper class could read, but not well, and not many. Okay, so some upper class people could read, but not very well and not many. So what it looks to me like this whole section is saying is that most of the stuff that we picture in medieval times comes like from people not being able to read. And even people who were supposed to be able to read, even that wasn't necessarily always like what we would consider being a good reader now. So basically, we just want to do a couple of things. We want to read through the paragraph to figure out what it's kind of talking about. And then we want to see if we can figure out what the main thing is that the author is trying to say about that topic. Okay? So we're going to try it next by ourselves.